But there are some interesting firsts and lasts about the Revolution in Rhode Island that get overlooked in most of the textbooks about the history of that particular war. And
from the beginning, Rhode Island was in the thick of the American Revolution. It was the first to disavow allegiance to the king on May 4th, 1776. And after the war,
we were the last to accept the Constitution, and we held out for the longest time because we really didn't want to have the war.
George Washington saw his opportunity to take the city of Newport with the help of French vessels.
The French fleet was anchored off of Newport for a week before they attempted to enter Narragansett Bay.
In the middle of 1778, this war in the colonies changed in terms of its character. And it became an international war because France entered the American Revolutionary War. And so what that did is it really changed the dynamics of the conflict.
Once more, my dear, I am permitted to write you. Great has been your disappointment, and great has been my sorrow. Grievous to bear because it came from my friends. But I beg not dispute at so great a distance.
From Newport, Mary Almy reported the calamity to her husband, who was off fighting for the colonists' cause.
By your desire and my own inclination, I am to give you an account of what passed during the siege, but first, let me tell you it will be done with spirit, for my dislike to the nation that you call your friends is the same as when you first knew me.
But she maintained allegiance to the crown and watched the unfolding conflagration in horror.
And I foresee that the whole will end as the maneuvers did in taking this island, to the discredit of the Americans. You will not be surprised at my warmth when you find how I suffered, nor wonder at my freedom when this comes sealed and wrote for your perusal alone.
And the American army was assembling on the mainland, and the French fleet was outside Narragansett Bay.
At this time, it was one of the rare opportunities when British forces were actually in a bad position, particularly their naval forces.
The Royal Navy vessels were ordered not to fall into enemy hands. And the idea is if you get captured, if a larger vessel comes up on you, you can't fight. The idea of a smaller vessel beating a bigger vessel just doesn't happen. Very, very rare in those periods.
Wednesday, August 5th. The first news in the morning. Large French ships made sail. The others at the mouth of the harbor made signals of unmooring, which threw the frigate into confusion.
Rather than being captured, what happened was that the captains deliberately sunk or burnt their vessels. The commander of the Cerberus ran the vessel aground and unloaded some of the supplies and set the vessel on fire.
3 other British vessels, the Lark, Orpheus, and Juno, were scuttled as more French ships approached.
We have artifacts that have come from the site that show evidence of that burning. The fire caught the powder kegs and the ship exploded, and there's stories of debris being landing many miles away in some of the people's fields and houses on Aquidneck Island.
Everything's gonna be fine. Mr. Almy, what a shocking disappointment to you. Just fine indeed. Can you keep up your spirits? Heaven, I hope, will support you.
All of the captains of the ships that were lost in Rhode Island went to New York, and they stood court-martial down there, and they were all exonerated because they had been ordered not to allow their ships to fall into enemy hands.